Good morning, everyone. We warmly welcome everyone to the third day of the three-day induction program conducted by Center for Research, Anna University. We warmly welcome the online participants also. For the first session on thesis writing, we have with us Professor Dr. Balasivanandha Prabu. Sir is a professor and head in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, CEG campus, Anna University. He is associated with Anna University for more than 2 decades and has largely contributed to teaching and research practices of Anna University. His research interests are composite materials, severe plastic deformation, mechanical behavior of materials. He is a recipient of several awards, including the Distinguished Research Award given by Anna University in 2022. Professor has successfully supervised 13 PhD scholars and is currently guiding a few more scholars. We are happy to have you with us, sir. I now request our Deputy Director, Dr. Ghulam Nabi Alsad, to felicitate Professor. Thank you, Professor. Over to you, sir.
Hello. So, very good morning to all here. So, you are all in the initial stage of your PhD research work. Probably what I am going to do is here the end of your research. So, the thesis writing is the end of your research. So, after taking a 3 years or 4 years journey, at the end you have to write a thesis. So, today I am going to discuss about the thesis writing part, how to write a good thesis. And before that, you might come across several forms of publications. Probably you might have read something every day, a newspaper, and you have a textbook, different part of textbook. You have a technical textbook, and you have a everyday reading of that. Then you have some magazines, Tamil magazine, Ponniyin Selvan. It is nicely written. And also you have some detective novels also. We will be fascinated in reading novels and all, because it would be more interesting. Reading textbook would be sometime it is boring, but reading novel would be much interesting, because there are suspense in it. Because at the end of the reading only the suspense will be broken, especially in the detective novels. And we have a textbook. If in case some of the textbook, if you read first page itself, you will sleep. No, that kind of an interesting one will have. But when you started reading novel, you quite often, every day you used to continue, and within a week time you will complete even a 1000-page novel. Yes, you agree. And something is different here. The last one, it is basically a thesis. So we are quite often understand what is the format of newspaper, everyday newspaper. We understand the format of a textbook. We understand the format of a novel, but it is something different from that. Because always from the childhood, we read something every day in one form or other. But whatever we read, we pursue that. This is a format of writing. When you read something in the newspaper, we have everything in back of our mind. It will tell you that this is a way of writing something. And when you read something, a textbook, it will teach you that this is a way of writing some textbook, something like that. But when you write a thesis, it is something different. And also when you talk to your PhD scholar, senior, and what they will say, doing research is much simpler, but writing thesis is much complicated. Because always they will spend a lot of time in writing. Someone will take 2 years to complete the PhD, but will take a year to write a thesis. So it is complicated. Why it is complicated? If you understand the process of writing a thesis, which will be much simpler, and also you can finish it within 2-3 months. Okay. So in the report writing or technical writing, we call in general 3 important way of technical writing. One, research proposal. Probably in the initial stage, you have to submit a research proposal to your supervisor or a funding agency. So a detailed discussion probably might have given by some other experts in writing how to write a proposal, research proposal. And technical paper. and also technical report. And technical report is called thesis or dissertation. And there is quite similarity between technical paper and a research report or thesis. The structure wise it is quite simple, quite similar, but you have some difference there. Okay. So now the technical writing is not to entertain. What is the purpose of a novel writing? It is to entertain. Okay, when you read, you will get some happy or probably you will be thrilled. So it is something entertaining. But when you read a paper, technical paper, is it entertaining you? It is not entertaining you. Okay, so it is not to entertain anyone. Therefore, a technical paper should, the major purpose is not to entertain. So the first thing, it is not entertain. To create suspense, it is not to create a suspense. Okay, suspense. That means whatever the research outcome, you have to clearly state in each and every part of your report. And what someone will say that I will not tell anything in my abstract page or introduction page or in what is called objective page, but I will write something in the conclusion. Sometimes that is contradictory. Without giving a proper objective, if you write a conclusion which is something different from your conclusion, it is something, a contradictory statement that you are giving. So it is not to create suspense. That is very, very important. So whatever the thing that you are going to take up a problem statement and you have to provide the answer to them correctly in the conclusion session. So no suspension, no suspense. Inviting different interpretation. It is to invite different interpretation. So in the discussion part, you have to give a lot of importance to interpretation. So the major idea behind this technical writing is this. Why technical writing is important? So it is basically credit to your work. When you publish a paper, it is credit to your work. When you have a thesis, it is credit to you. Because based on the thesis only, you will be awarded a PhD degree. Okay. So PhD thesis is something different from your undergraduate thesis and PG thesis. How? Because in the undergraduate project, you have a group of people, 3-4 people will be joined together, you will carry out the project. And finally, you will also segregate the work. So I will write introduction chapter, you write this chapter, these write. So it is not a whole part of that you are going to write. Okay? It is not a whole thesis you have written. It is a part of the thesis you might be written. But here, in this PhD thesis, you are the sole author. Okay, no one will help you. Sometime the supervisor. Okay, that means the whole responsibility and you are the sole author to write the complete thesis. Therefore, it is a credit to your work, conveying important new information. Any thesis should reveal certain information, which is a new information. At least a delta amount of new knowledge should be presented in the thesis. Delta amount of information, new information. If something is already there, what is the point in reinventing and then presenting in the form of a thesis? No. So a thesis must give a way to give you new insights about your work. It is obvious that every research needs good and proper documentation. Yes. Because we talk about our ancient history and we say we have good traditional health practices, we have a Siddha, we have Ayurvedic, and so many things are there, but it is not popularized because there was no proper documentation of each and everything. So therefore, when you do some research, if it is documented, it will be kept in a repository and anyone can later date, they can take and then review it or probably understand what way it has been done and documented. Okay, that is very important. To obtain some form of degree. So ultimate aim of this thesis writing, and based on that only your degree will be awarded. And sometimes you will be also quite happy when it is highly commended and little happy when it is commended, and probably you will be satisfied. Okay, I have done some good amount of work if it is recommended. And sometimes you will be unhappy if it is rejected and then subject to another revision. Okay, so there are several, so your satisfaction level depends on the quality of thesis that you are going to write. Okay, why it is difficult? Because sometimes, Okay, even after putting 4 years of hard effort, sometimes people discontinue. That happens, and you might have read some even some untoward incidents also in the newspaper sometimes in some of the reputed institutions. Correct? That happens during the report writing only, not during the research practices. Okay, at the end of this 4th year or 5th year, someone will decide, no, this is not my cup of tea, I will quit. But they may have so much of research results with them, but they find it difficult to put everything in the documentation form. It is very difficult. People assume. Probably you take a case study of a doctor who is doing a heart surgery, or a doctor who is specialized in brain surgery. Okay? Do you think that they are nervous while they are doing for brain surgery or heart surgery? No, they are not nervous. Why they are not nervous? Because at every time the situation is different. They have to immediately respond to the situation. If something happens, then they have to immediately rectify it. But even then, sometime within a few minutes and then few seconds, they take a quick decision and successfully complete the operation. But every operations are new for them. But still, they are very, very successful. Why? Because they are trained for that. They are trained for that. But you are not trained for writing the thesis. That's a problem. They are trained for that. And their what is called the previous people, they might have given some kind of a knowledge, transfer the knowledge. If something happens like that, then you have to take this remedial action like that. So some kind of a information were passed on to the next generation. As a result, they became a good practitioner, health practitioner. Now, here this is a new task to you. That's why you fail in writing. And also when you are writing a thesis, you would get nervous. Okay, so it is very difficult task, but it is a simple task. Manner in which technical report written, and also we have a very high expectation from the panel of members or sometimes your supervisor. Okay, and also writing thesis would be, sometimes it is challenging because you have to coherently coin everything, because you have so much of information in your brain. When you are conducting research, you have so much of information, you have so much of data, but how to put this data in a proper documentation? Because writing is a linear process. You have to write one paragraph, next paragraph, next paragraph. There is a linear arrangement of order. But what is the order in which the data is arranged in your brain? The knowledge is arranged in the brain. Is it linear? No. So chaotic. Okay. But when you are sitting and then sometimes you sit and then kind of meditation, if you think you may get some points and coherently you can write the points, and later on that you can develop as a paragraph, and linear way, no, you can produce. So that's why sometimes people feel that it is much difficult task. So writing a thesis, research documents are essentially made up of arguments, concepts around the problem. So the thesis writing, it is full of arguments. Okay, sometimes if you read a paper, good technical paper, in the discussion part, there would be greater argument. Sometimes it is a technical fight also will happen between the authors. So one will claim that your paper is totally wrong, stating following points, and next paper he will write that whatever claim that you have made, it's also totally wrong. So if you read that kind of a paper, you will get so much of argument is keep on going, and also you can find the what is called answers for this argument. So the thesis writing, even though it is linear, a lot of arguments and results, contradictory statement, and these kind of things will happen there around the problem. You make claim which become more or less truth, like based on your evidences, convincing your audience. So always know when you are writing a thesis, it is a evidence based, no assumption based. So when you write a thesis, you have so much of data. The data are your evidence, and argument you have to build based on the previous literature. So it should be like that. So generally the thesis is long and unstructured. It takes longer than what you think. And there are some psychological factors also, because you are not new to, you are not what is called the trained in thesis writing. Sometimes psychological factor also will affect. How I am going to, because in my undergraduate, my friend has written whole of the thing. I only given some correction to the thesis. Now in the master also, I have spent only few days, because my guide has given some kind of a thesis as a model. So I just built my thesis based on that model thesis. Now how I am going to build my entire thesis, which has some 120 page or maximum or minimum 100 page, something like that. So it's some psychological issue also there when you moment you say a thesis writing. Okay, and document management issue. So you have to manage the time management, documentation management. Decision must be made about thesis structure. So what kind of a structure we are going to follow. Okay, and very importantly, who will read it and why? Who will read your thesis? Definitely your supervisor will read the thesis. Definitely your examiner will read the thesis. Later part, maybe some researchers also will read the thesis. And the thesis is the lifelong document that in one time that you are going to write a maximum number of pages. During your entire lifetime, that you are going to write one thesis which is a maximum number of containing maximum number of pages. Probably if you are expert, probably in the later stage, you can write a book which can have more than number of pages of your thesis. Okay, but for many of you or many of us, it is a one document. In our whole lifetime, we are going to write a maximum number of pages. So here, don't make the state your contribution explicitly, because each one, the commonality between this students group or scholars group sitting here, you may be taking up different problem in engineering, electrical, electronics, mechanical, material, so many problems. But the common thing is here, everyone going to write a thesis finally. So that is a commonality. Okay, so state your contribution explicitly. Don't hide anything, because when you record something, that's a thing that first you are the author, you are going to record. Therefore, this is a new idea that I have generated, new result it came. I am going to keep it confidentially. This is my property. I will not reveal it. That kind of a mentality should not be there. Whatever a new finding comes, it should be presented in the thesis. Don't make the examiner work to infer what new good, because sometimes where is the new novelty is there after several days of examination, and somewhere it is hidden. So when you find something is novel, it should be clearly mentioned in every part of this introduction, as well as literature review, as well as in objectives, and even the discussion, conclusion part, end of the conclusion, you have to highlight it. So that is very, very important. State your contribution in intro, that means introduction and also conclusion, and if necessary, in each of the chapters also. Be obvious, section heading, bullet. What makes a good or bad thesis? This is a question. Okay, this is a question. Probably at the end of the lecture, you have to say what is a good thesis and what is a bad thesis. And general format of this thesis, I will also say the format and what are the things should be covered in each sections of the thesis. Okay, the entire thesis can be segmented into three parts. One is the preliminary part. That preliminary part, then it's a body, it's a textual part, and then reference. Reference is the last part. So in the preliminary part, okay, all the things will be covered. So it will be covering the introduction, okay, and probably before introduction you will have a title page, abstract page, content page, something. That is the introductory part. Textual part, it's actually from the literature till the conclusion, and you have a reference. So this is how the thesis should be. So generally the thesis will have this structure. Okay, you must have an introduction. How to write an introduction, I will come later. And review of related literature, research methodology, data analysis, that means it is a result and discussion, that is data analysis, summary and conclusions and recommendations, and finally references, and if you have any appendices, that can be also, appendices can be also there. Okay. So in the preliminary section, a title page, how to write a title page. The title should not be vague. Moment I look at the title, the examiner can be able to understand what will be presented in the thesis. So the thesis title is reflection of your entire work. So you have to coin a title which is also a short, but it should reflect what is the work major content presented in the thesis. Okay, that's how you have to coin. It should not be a general. Okay, should not be a general, and one has to look at deeper and what is the thing that is presented there. So that's how the title should be. Then followed by a bona fide certificate. A format will be given to you from the university. We have a standard format, and that should form a first part of that. Then acknowledgement. So sometimes it is very hard to see, even our own students, very probably we might, as a supervisor, we might have given extend so much of help or something, but simply I thank my supervisor. Is it a way to acknowledge your supervisor who spent 4 years along with you, burned his finger in correcting your papers so many times, maybe 10 times, 12 times, 14 times? I used to spend 14 times minimum. The paper I have minimum corrected is 2 times. That one of the good scholar I had, only 2 times I corrected. But most of the papers I used to correct more than 14 times, 15 times. Then finally I will decide, let the reviewer decides. Let it go. Reviewer will decide. Okay, that means so much of amount of time, energy, thing the supervisor is spending, but hardly you acknowledge, I thank the supervisor. Okay, a similar way, if you are a family member, the family might have given you sufficient freedom, and they might have sacrificed so much of things, happiness and other things. So you have to acknowledge the family also properly. And there are many people who might be supported in the laboratory. Let it be a lab in charge or a technical person, technical assistant, so many people. Thank them. Because that is the document, even after 20 years, that acknowledgement page will be there. You can sometimes remember the people. See, when you become older, even after 20 years, someone will say, no, I am your student. I think 6 months back, I went to Kabalishwara temple. One lady came. Good evening, sir. How are you, sir? என்னப்பா லேடி வருது, என் ஒய்ஃப் வேற பக்கத்தில் இருக்கிறாங்க, இதை தப்பா நினைச்சிருவாங்களே. Sir, I am your student, sir. So it is totally, the physical structure is totally changed. We could not be able to recognize. Then she said name. Oh, you are a topper in that class, so I recognize. So when you record the name of the person who supported your thesis or research work in the acknowledgement, probably you can recognize them after 20 years or 30 years by looking at the acknowledgement page. That is very, very important. Sometimes hardly people write half page and something. Okay, but 1 page. Give due representation there. Table of content. Okay. Actually, this table of content should be written at the end of your writing. You write everything and then arrange everything, and then you start preparing the table of content. And so that you can put the page number and all orderly. List of table, definitely you will have a table that should be presented. List of table 1, 2, 3, and list of figures 1, 2, 3, that should be there, and followed by list of symbols and abbreviation. That is very, very important. List of symbols, that because we engineering and science people, we often use mathematical equation and so many what is known as the symbols and what is called abbreviations also, that must be also presented. Okay. So this has the first part, preliminary part of your thesis, and the second part is the main body of your report, or which is called textual body, where it going to have the introduction chapter, then review report, literature review, and basically the methodology, and then the resultant discussion, and conclusion, and finally the recommendations. These are the main part of your thesis. Okay. So introduction, what should be the introduction? Sometimes people, they started cut, copy, paste from the textbook and started writing. metal matrix composite is so. It is the replication of textbook. But the introduction should be around your problem statement. Okay, so what is the introduction needed for your problem statement? That has to be there, not the something which is available in the textbook. It is a known material, known information. Known information need not be again passed on the thesis, but relevant known information has to be there. So the introduction should have majorly the statement of the problem, what problem you are going to work on, and the relevant information, how you have derived the problem, what is the importance of this problem to the current state of affair, that has to be presented in the introduction stage. And definitely you should have an objective of study, and you should have a research gap. From the research gap, what are all the objectives of your study, that should be clearly stated. Then the research question, significance of the study, why you have taken this study, why you have taken this objective, the answer should be there, significance of the study. And limitation of the study, every research will have some limitation, because within the boundary only we will doing research. So the limitations of the study. Then definition of important terms used, that should be also there in the introduction. So the introduction should be written keeping this problem statement as a central point of attraction. You have to arrange your introduction page. Okay, it is not usual page where you take information from the textbook and put in the sequential order and then you present the introduction. Not like that. Okay, if someone is doing some work on solar cell, you need not, you can write about the description about the solar cell, what is solar cell, how it is used, but what is the problem that you are going to attend in the solar cell, why you have taken up the problem, okay, what are all the objectives based on that, and what are all the limitations of that, what is the scope of that problem. Okay, all this information should be presented in the introduction stage. Then the review of relevant literature. Okay, what is basically review of literature? I have a detailed page here. Next, then research methodology, method and process or procedure used, and then tools of research. That means what are all the tools? Now sometimes people use experimental equipments, XRD, DSC, FTIR, and sometimes people use some ANOVA table, that is a tool. Sometimes people use C language, that's a tool. So what are all the tools you are using to conduct your experiment, that should be presented. And techniques of data collection, what are all the way you are going to collect the data, sometimes by survey method, sometimes conducting the experiment. So all this information should be there. Then description of technique used, how you have used that instrument. Okay, for example, you prepare the sample. Okay, how you have prepared the sample for metallographic inspection. I polish it by this way and use this grades of emery sheet. I use finally this kind of a paste. This is the description of usage of your equipment. So that should be also there. Sometimes people put the equipment images. Don't put the equipment images in the PhD thesis. Everyone will know. But what you have to present there, the model make of that equipment that I have used, and this is the condition I have used this equipment. All the certain details should be there, not the image of the equipment. Okay, image of the equipment should be avoided unless you build the image, you build the instrument, you constructed a new instrument by designing something, then you can put a detailed block diagram and the image of the instrument. But if it is already there, don't put that. Okay, so research methodology. Then you have a data analysis of data, table and interpretation, figure and interpretation. This is the result and discussion. I will come later. And then summary, conclusion, recommendation, and discussion of the result, main finding, conclusions. Okay, I will discuss one by one the title page, where, okay, the title page of our thesis will have the title of the thesis. As I said, it should reflect what is presented there. So the title must have a very, very clear indicative of your research. The name of the candidate, purpose or relationship of this is to the course or degree. Sometimes it is a partial fulfillment to award of PhD degree. So that is a statement that you have to mention. Then college department, in which year you have submitted, November 2022, November 2027, something like that. Name of the university to which it is submitted, Anna University. So month and year. So usually it is something like that. No, you have, look at this title, experimental investigation on the effect of equal channel angular pressing on the mechanical, wear and corrosion properties of aluminum TiB2 in situ metal matrix composite. Very clearly stated that it is an experimental problem where someone is developing some composites by in situ means, and they are also studying the effect of some secondary process, equal channel process, equal channel angular pressing on certain property. It is very clearly. So as an examiner, the moment he look at the thesis title, he will understand. So this is what it is going to be presented in the thesis. And then a thesis submitted by someone in partial fulfillment for the award of degree, doctoral philosophy, and this is a structure. So this is the first part of your thesis. And abstract, it's very, very important. Abstract should give straight away what novelty that you have. Don't hide anything. Like a suspense novel, you keep something hidden and break the suspense at the end. No suspense. In the abstract, you have to clearly give all the information. The information means what is the methodology that you have followed, how you have conducted the experiment, what is the data collection technique, what is the new data that you have generated, what is the reason for that, all this thing, but it is in a very concise way with one page or 1.5 page. Okay, sometimes in Anna University the page limit is not there. I think 2 page it can be extended. Okay, usually it should be 1.5 page. You have to confine everything. So give away all important result, and it is a summary of the work. Okay, sometimes even in the technical paper writing also, the similar thing that you have to follow. Okay, technical paper writing, in the abstract page, you have to give everything. Okay, and sometimes when we review the papers, technical paper, okay, so only the preamble or how they have conducted the research and what is the research, that's only will be there. So what is the novel conclusion they arrive at, that won't be there. So we have to go through and then find out in the discussion and in the conclusion. In the conclusion also, no specific detail will be there. It is specific. It is specific. Abstract and conclusion should be very, very specific. Okay. Then it must stand alone without reference to the text body. So there is no citation of references. Nothing should be there in the references. And sometimes it is needed. Sometimes referencing someone's paper, because you will be taking that paper as a reference and you will say that that value is this in this paper and my value is something like that. So in that case, you can refer the papers. Okay, you can cite the paper inside the abstract, but generally in the abstract no citation. Should include some information on the result obtained, and length and format are usually specified by the university. I think for our university it is 1.5 page or 2 page. So this also I have briefly explained. And table of content I explained already. Now come to chapter 1. Okay, the main purpose of this introduction chapter is to indicate the need of the study or scope of that study, and it should be reported in the past sense, okay, form. And problem, objective, hypothesis, research questions, significance of the study, limitations of the study are to be precisely there. Okay, so this is the introduction. Come to literature survey. It is very, very important. Mainly, whenever we write a proposal, and if your literature survey is proper, I would say your proposal will be also sometimes sanctioned. Because while looking at the literature, we can judge the knowledge level of each of the candidate. How the literature is presented, it is very, very important. That itself will decide how much information or how much knowledge you have gained from the past literature, because the way in which you write will clearly make the examiner clear about the knowledge level of candidate. Okay, therefore writing literature review. What is literature? It is already published, already done work which is published in a form of a paper or document. It is literature. Review means it is analysis. That's why many of the PhD scholars fail. It is analysis. But the analysis part is missing in many of the paper as well as in the thesis also. Because this is a chapter, it consumes a lot amount of time, your time. Because you know already experimental work, you can write very clearly, because the flow of thing, how you have done, that is known to you. You can write very clearly. And resultant discussion also, sometimes when you publish multiple paper, 2-3 papers, it is only the extended version of your paper, because when you combine paper and then if you elaborate the discussion, it would be a resultant discussion. But the literature review, it's not like that. Sometimes you may finish all other chapters within a month, but if you may take 2 months time or 3 months time to write this literature review. It's very, very, very important. Okay, the chapter is essential in most of the research study. It presents comprehensive development of the problem breakdown. So you have a problem statement, probably a solar energy, a solar panel, new design that you are going to focus. The solar panel new design, there may be n factor around that. You may be attending one factor, okay, X factor, one may be a material factor. If you take material factor, there are several manufacturing methodology available. The same material may be manufactured in a different route, and they may be used for this application. And they might have done some work in calculating the efficiency of the solar panel by having this different nanostructured material, nanoparticle deposition, or nano wire, and fabricating the nano wire with different processing, maybe VLS technique or solid, what is called vapor growth mechanism. Even in the vapor growth mechanism, there are several processes available. So if you compare this process, so in the X factor, there are several variables, okay, attached with that, and that is the thing. Then solar panel design, that is a one thing. Okay, it is a material, and then panel design, and also the location, position, how the sun goes here and there, how I change. So this, so even you take a one problem, there are 6 factors attached with that. So each of the, so you take a problem, central problem, what are all the factors or what are all the number of factors you list down, and to connect this number of factors for each factor, you have several papers, maybe more than 100 papers. If you have a problem which is taken up by many people, and your number of papers also, publications also will be very, very high. For example, if you take a composites, polymer matrix composite, those who are in chemistry, mechanical may understand polymer matrix composites. If you put polymer matrix composite, more than 20,000-30,000 paper will come in sciencedirect.com itself. And how do you extract the relevant literatures for your? So you have to identify the problem statement and the factors, and to corresponding to this factor, what are all the papers, literature available, take those paper and you take a bullet point, this other, and take a key point, like a bullet point, this other, take a key point. So summarize that, and then relate relevant literature, collide relevant literatures together, and for this factor, so many people, 10 papers I have, and arrange them in an order and nicely present that as an analysis. So in the research literature review, initially you take the information from them, what they have directly presented in the paper, and that you present, and in your own way, you have to do the analysis. What is the interpretation that you are doing based on that literature? That must be presented. So here basically the literature gives you a knowledge also. When you do a proper literature survey, it gives you enough information, enough knowledge, even for one problem, and there are so many possible ways to find the solutions. Okay, for one problem, there are several ways to find the solution. Each one will do in a different way. Each one will have their own way of solution finding. Each one may take different techniques, different analytical way. So many information you can gather, and also you can optimize your own problem. Understanding these are all the ways. So this is a way which will give you a clear path for my research solution. So knowing this, you can take your proper route. That's the thing. So reading the literature is very, very important, but sometimes that is a problem with the PhD scholars also, because the day one when you enter into a department, the research supervisor gives the problem. When some student approaches, I will write the problem. This is a problem, this is a methodology, this is the details, and this is the result I want. I expect this result. So expectation also I give based on my experience. This is a thing that will come, because our theoretical knowledge will give some kind of an insight that if something goes like this, And definitely this. Similarly, this research supervisors are also very clever. You cannot cheat them, because when I look at the microstructure, when I look at the data, I can able to correlate because of my experience. I will say your data is wrong, something you have manipulated. Something you have manipulated. And finally, in the argument, he will also accept that, yes, I have manipulated. The values comes here, and I know the value will only come there. It won't come here, because the theoretical in the textbook shows this is a order which will go, but you have followed that. But this is a way. So because when you put so much of when you put so much of effort in the research, and also when you read so many literatures, that will give you a general knowledge about the research. So you can find what is the way you can tune your problem. So the way, the part of the solution will come if you have a background of literature, and if you properly do the literature analysis, part of your job will be over, because you will have a proper way first after doing literature review. So initially you have to do this literature survey. So earlier we spent so much of time, even every researcher, we used to spend 1 year or 1.5 years thoroughly go through the literature, and then we do the research, probably another 2.5 years or 3 years. Now from the day one, we send the students to the laboratory because we also want to complete them in a shorter period of time and then award the degree as a result. Without giving much of time in reading the literature, we are also sending them to the laboratory. As a result, the time is very, very limited. No, you keep a point that every day, minimum I read 5 papers. But when you take a first time, when you read the paper, even you need 5 times or 6 times, 10 times reading to understand one paper. But your brain will be tuned after reading 10 papers. So immediately, no, you can go through and, okay, within half an hour or 1 hour, you can finish it. But the first time when you take up a research journal and read it, it will consume lot of time, because to understand each and every paragraph, you have to read multiple time, because you have to tune neural network. So it is training the neural network. How you are train your artificial neural network by giving data set like that, the first paper, second paper, third paper. So the brain will be tuned and then understand. Once it understands the pattern, and it will recognize, so this is the order in which it is written, and then immediately now you can understand. But while you take the paper for the next time reading, hardly within 30 minutes you can read. Even sometimes we also review within 1 hour. So we read everything, but we understand what is presented in that paper within half an hour. That's all. So initially it is very hard to read, but later you can understand. So it supports your hypothesis, extend previous work, avoid previous mistake. Okay, when you read the previous mistake done by other researchers, that you can eliminate. Okay, so how to write a literature review? You start with the broad spectrum of your problem. Okay, so it is something like focusing your problem at the down. So straight away, if you give this is my problem, no one will accept. So you have to set a property for that. So you set a room. So this is what the area, broader area, and this is the broader area. For example, so you reader know. So start from the known information. As you know, the composites are used here, this applications, that applications, something like that. So these materials are used and it has so much of good property, that property. Again, you have to cite the references also. Okay, these are all some known informations. So start with the known information at the broader spectrum, and then focus on your area. So something like that. So I take a composite as a case study. So composite is a broad area. So you introduce the field. Now your focus is polymer matrix composite. So once you set a broader spectrum of composite is your field of interest, again come to a smaller domain, polymer matrix composite. Again focus on the certain aspect of the field. So you are going to study basically the deformation mechanism, or improving the bonding, improving the properties of that. That is your goal. So a polymer matrix composite, polymer matrix composite, deformation mechanism. Again, this deformation mechanism is strongly depending on the bonding nature of fiber and matrix. So you come down to your actual problem, the gap, interfacial bonding. So the focus area of your research is interfacial bonding. Again, in the interfacial bonding, there are several bonding, physical bonding, mechanical bonding, chemical bonding. In each of the bonding, several factors are there. So, if you understand interfacial bonding is your area of research and key area of research, again in the bonding, 3 different bonding are there. So, you have to again focus on that and narrow down what is the chemical bonding is finally your objective. So, you have to focus. So, the literature review should be set something like that. No, it start with the known information and slowly you constrain and then go down to actual problem. That means how you have arrived to your problem from the literature, that roadmap you have to give. And also when you are writing this literature review, it should not be boresome to the reader. Most of the time, now what way it is written, look at this, either A et al, either B et al, either C et al, okay, either X et al predicted this, something like this value is this, either B et al predicted this, either C et al. This is not a good way of writing. This is not a good way of writing. In most of the thesis, people cut, copy, paste, author name and what they have reported, author name, what they have reported. No systematic breakage of that chapter. Okay, if introduction, a literature survey chapter, something, a broader spectrum in one paragraph, from that something, a classification something, and from that a defamation mechanism, you are going to discuss about this defamation mechanism. From that, this is governed by, controlled by interface, you are going to discuss about the interface, what are all the work available in the interface, and how interface can be modified and designed, then literature. So, the flow of information is something very nice, so that at the end of your page, you will arrive at the problem. This is a problem I have developed from the macroscopic viewpoint and then I come down to the microscopic level. That's how it has to be. So, it has to break, you have to have a subgetting also. Sometime literature review, start with no preamble, nothing, no introduction to, see even in the literature also you should have an introduction. What are all the things that you are going to review? What area you are going to review? You are going to review a material system in which you are going to review the deformation, in which you are going to see the controlling factors, and in the controlling factor you have decided that this is important factor that you are going to do the research work. In this important factor you are going to say that because the chemical bonding is much better, so I am going to attend that. So, this is the way I am going to review my literature. So, that has to be clearly stated in the introduction section of the literature review. Okay, in the literature review also you should write an introduction section for about half page. There the boundaries of your literature review must be spelt out. Okay, and look at this side where something, other this other something. Is it a nice way to read if you have a 20 page or 30 page? Because you have to have at least minimum 20 to 25 page for literature survey, but you will take longer time for that. If you have from the starting to end, other et al, is it nice way to read? No. So, a systematic flow of information where you have to reinforce the literature review, that is very important. You have to reinforce the literature review in the systematic narration of your literature survey or analysis. Look at this. I have something like it. So, written here. So, during solidification, so and so, near solidification, friend will either be rejected or trapped. This was presented by Hasim et al. I have not mentioned, or he has not mentioned, Hasim et al. Studied the rejection of this thing, something like that. So, this is what will happen, but this was studied by them. So, I have put the citation there, but this information was taken from there. So, if you read this, there is a coherent way of passing the information from the literature. There is a coherent way of presenting the information from the literature. That's what very important. It should not be, because it will take some time, because when you read multiple papers, several papers, more than, I would say for completing your PhD, you must have at least read more than 200 papers. At least you might have cited more than 100 papers in your thesis. Okay? Then probably you will have a domain knowledge in your area. Okay. So, this is how it should be presented. So, very important section in the thesis is literature review. Sometimes, most of the time, the critical comment will come from the literature review, because based on that only the examiner will understand, write a comment that this candidate has a clear understanding on the problem. That kind of a statement will come, we write based on the literature survey. Otherwise, we say the candidate does not have any kind of knowledge, something like that, a kind of a vague statement that sometimes it is inappropriate to you also, that we will place. Okay. Then methodology, chapter 3, indicate the line of approach of your study. The first aspects deal with the method, population, sample of study, tools, technique. That means what is the method, whether it is experimental technique. Then you have to prescribe, write what is the technical method that you are going to follow, how you are going to follow. Everything should be explained in the methodology. Probably methodology may be in your thesis experimental work, or if it is not experimental work, or mathematical formulation, or numerical formulation, or sometimes modeling, or sometimes algorithm. If it is if it is a computer science problem, algorithm design, algorithm, something like that. So you present what is your way of doing this. That means experimental means or theoretical means. So method must be precisely done there. And then population, how many data you are going to set. That means the table should be presented, how many experiment you are going to conduct, varying the what is called parameter, that should be presented. So a detailed experimental plan should be also there. That is the sample of study, how many samples you are going to do. Then tools. See, when someone is doing a materials related problem, they will say microscopic examination, SEM, TEM, XRD, EDS, then probably FTIR, Raman spectroscopy. These are all the tools. So you have to clearly mention what is the model make of the tool that you are employing for your conduct of experiment, that must be presented. Okay. They also present the procedure of the study. What is the procedure that you are going to adopt? Then whole plan of the study is discussed. Maybe you have to put a one chart, that is called research methodology. Okay, at the end of this chapter, research methodology has to be also there. Then the proposed technique, okay, that can be also divided into subsection. For example, if you are studying a mechanical property, then if you are studying some kind of a non-destructive testing, so something like that, you can group your tools and also you can subdivide that. Provide a general description of a technique or method, and also your own formulation, algorithm, strategy has to be also discussed. In case of a modeling, in case of a computer science related problem, how you are developing algorithm, that should be also there. And hardware, software you are going to develop. Sometimes a new hardware, software you are developing, that methodology also should be there in this chapter only. Then application of technique. Sometimes you will use some technique, ANOVA technique, optimization technique, that should be also clearly stated. Okay. That means in the research methodology, what is the method, whether it is an experimental method, and the tool, characterization tool, or if it is a software, algorithm, or sometimes the optimizing solution, if you are taking some ANOVA or something, that also should be presented. All this information should be presented in the chapter 3, where there is no data should be presented. It is only about your plan of action. That means what is the method that you are proposing, that's all. Then in the next chapter, you are going to have result and discussion. Again, it is also very, very equally important, that of the literature review. So your thesis, the major part of your thesis is one literature review, another one result and discussion. These two will decide the strength of the thesis, the quality of the thesis, whether it is good or bad, it is decided by only these two chapters. Okay. Result and discussion. What way the result and discussion should be presented? You have to present the data. So you have generated so much of information, data from your research, that has to be presented in the form of a table or in the form of a what is called the graphs, pictorial form, graph. It is immediately presenting the data. Once you present the data, observe the data. So when you observe the data, you can find some trend. Okay. So you present the data in the form of a pictorial representation, observe the data, so write the observation. Observation writing is simple. I can look at this, so only 4 people are there. This is my observation. One seat is empty. This is observation. Okay. Why one seat is empty? I am going to interpret, because two women are here, two men are here. No men want to sit in between them. They want to give some free space. That is my observation. So immediately understanding the data, observation is one thing. Interpretation of that data is another thing. So how I interpret? Because our Tamil culture says that we should not near to the women, we should stay away from the women, give respect. So that is the knowledge already we have in our brain. Okay. So one is the presentation of data, another one is observation, then discussion. Discussion with proper mechanism, phenomena, methodology, something like that. So you need support of literature to argue the statement. So once you know the data, you are presenting the data, then you are observing the data. This is what the trend. Then how this trend is forming, I need explanation. So argument should be built on this observation, and if I have so much of information from the literature, I can argue on that, why it is like that, why it is behaving like that. So that argument I have to build. So in the result and discussion, two important things. One, the presenting the data, observing the data. In the discussion part, it is based on the argument and based on the literature evidences and whatever the previous information that you have gathered from the literature. Based on that, you have to build the discussion. So that would be much challenging unless you have a good background of literature review. This discussion part would be very difficult. Even when you are attending the research YOOs or something, okay, now the trend is people say it is increasing, it is decreasing. Why it is increasing, why it is decreasing, no one will discuss in the presentation also, not also in the thesis. So it is very important. So this chapter, analysis and results are reported. The analysis of data are presented in tabular form and pictorial are present form, interpreted, and they provide the original work and also contribution by other researcher. Okay, so I will discuss few important points here. Focus on key points in the resultant discussion. Okay, key points is very important. Don't clutter illustrations. Sometimes the illustrations, okay, supposing if you are copying some illustrations from other report, it should be cited. Otherwise, in the resultant discussion, if you are presenting the illustration copied from other paper, it is usually the reviewer will assume that it is your own work. Own work data should be only presented in the resultant discussion. But for comparison, if you are taking some data or images or pictorial representation from other literature, it should be properly cited. I take this image from this other work and for comparative purpose. Otherwise, it will give explicit mean that it is your own work, but later on it will create some kind of a complication to you. So therefore, that's the one thing. So don't clutter images. Illustration means so many information sometimes will be put in one image. Okay, sometimes images may not have x and y axis. If you write a graph and x and y axis, what is the x axis, what is the y axis? Nothing would be there, and unit won't be there. So properly it should be done. Label axis, define symbols. If it is a new symbols, you have to also define symbols there, and use same units as in the text. And it is quite often happens that in the discussion some other unit will be there, but in the graph some other unit will be there. It should be same unit. Photo authenticity, that's what I told. If you take something from some other source, you have to also give this thing, citation. Obtain permission for use of previously published material. So now here citation is sufficient, people will understand. So these are all the major points that you have to remember while you are writing your result and discussion. What are the major pattern in the observation? It is absorption, observing something. So linear or parabolic change, hyperbolic change. So what is the observation of data? Major pattern in the observation. Then what are the relationship, trend and generalization, whether it is linearly increasing, linearly decreasing, parabolically increasing, decreasing, something like that. The trend must be explained, the relationship must be explained. What are the expectation to this pattern or generalization? When you increase, what are all the expectation? When something is increasing and the strength of the material is improving, something like that. So what this implying on the property or something that you have to say. Then what are all the likely causes? This will come into the discussion part, mechanism. So then is there agreement or disagreement with the previous work? So when you say that, see, I used to work in coating, where in some coating, super hard coating, people used to report that more than 40 GPa we called super hard coating. In the industry, we develop a coating which has megapascal, 300, 400 megapascal. But someone developed some coating in the laboratory which has 40 GPa, gigapascal, extremely super hard coating. It is equivalent to diamond hardness, artificially they made. So when they publish a paper, this is what the hardness I get. Next paper, someone, I don't reveal the other because it is being recorded. So he will say that this is not at all possible, because only with the grain size reduction, it is not possible. Those who are working on nano structured material know, beyond certain critical dimension, the material hardness will come down because of the viscous behavior of the material. So it is not possible, only with the grain refinement. Then next paper he will say, no, because there is a grain size reduction. Also, I have given the mechanism gives some kind of a pinning agent, which is amorphous particles are around each of the grain. So it is a kind of a composite coating I developed. So he given the proof. The next argument, only with that it is not possible, because you measured the hardness with the nano indentation. The nano indentation, there are so many problems. If you have already penetrated the indented tip 1 nanometer below or 10 nanometer below, that depth will be also accounted. So that will give you overestimation. So because the nano indentation will have several issues. So many 10 problems are there in the nano indentation. So he will quote. So again he will reply. So this is the argument it is building. So look at this. Even to you say one value is correct, so much of argument is developed. This kind of a thing that you have to present in the data, okay, in the discussion. So agreement or disagreement, I have this value, but previous paper reported this, where I have a lower value, it is not possible, or higher value, this is possible because of these factors. That you have to, argument that you have to build based on the literature review. Then interpret result in terms of background laid out on the introduction. What is the relationship of the present result to the original question? So your original objective, original research questions must be addressed. So you have to have a link. What is the implication of the present result for other unanswered question? Then multiple hypotheses. Even to have one value, there will be multiple factor. So all the factor must be addressed. So conveniently, we will say, I have done this, value is this, only this factor will be maximum contributor. But there will be several factors that will be contributing to the hardness. If you want to have a good hardness, you have to have a grain size reduction. Okay, then you should have a compressive stress must be produced, and also there should be a Frankel defect, and also there should be what else? Probably okay, a composite kind of a nature. Then the hardness will be high. So even for a hardness, there are 4 important factors. You have to address all these 4 important factors. Nicely, I have only done hardness. So the hardness value is this, and probably you might have done some residual stress measurement, and residual stress is this. But without quoting the grain size, without quoting the thickness of your secondary particle pinning around the grains, nothing. If you say, then this is incomplete discussion. So whatever a multiple factor which is governing this data must be presented. That is called, it is multiple hypothesis. What are all the things we know, we now know or understand that we did not know or understand before the previous work? That should be there. Include the evidence or line of reasoning supporting each interpretation. The line of reasoning, this is increasing. What is the reason? That it should be. This is decreasing. What is the reason? Everything should be there. So reasoning based on the previous report. What is the significance of present result? Why should we? So the significance of that work discussion. So in each of the discussion chapter, at the end, a summary conclusion must be also written. Okay. So finally, the conclusion chapter. Conclusion. Again, it is also very important, because always the conclusion should be specific conclusion. It should not be general conclusion, because the area that you are going to work, it is not a new area. It is not a new area. It is not a exploratory kind of a research. Okay, it is all the research done by already some people. We are going to again fine tune the research. That's all. We are not going to dig another kiledi and then going to investigate. Okay, so if you do that, it is called exploratory kind of a research. Okay, if you are going to analyze the black hole, then it is called exploratory kind of research. But it is a kind of a research which is already proven multiple times. And what you are going to try is that you are going to add a delta knowledge over that background. That's all. Therefore, the conclusion must be specific conclusion. What is a specific conclusion? You have arrived at your work, not a general conclusion. General conclusions are already there in the paper and other previous thesis. What is the specific conclusion? That is very, very important. If it is a specific conclusion, sometimes probably say, I have developed a coating which is artificial coating, which has a hardness equivalent to the hardness of a diamond, then it is a specific conclusion. Then reason for that specific conclusion should be also stated. So conclusion writing is the most important chapter. It requires a creative and reflective aspects of the researcher. The results are discussed to make the more meaningful comparison of the results with the evidence. The finding of the study are summarized and the suggestions for further studies are also to be given. Okay, so in the conclusion part, highlight the major advantage of technique method proposed when compared to other technique or conventional technique. Re-emphasize by writing down the novelty of research work, and you also write down the limitations of your research work. That are all very, very important. And finally, now you have to write a references. When you write a references, you look at our website and there are some standard patterns available. Only you have to follow that patterns. Okay, author name, comma, the year of publication, title of the paper and journal name, and then volume and the PP. So this is the order you have to write. Sometimes people write in a different fashion, and finally the research scrutiny committee also will send back the thesis again. You have to rebind. So to avoid that, and finally, now you have to have a list of publication. That's all. So now this image clearly tells what is the path that you are going to carry out. Okay, so your thesis is going, and there are multiple enemies. Who are all your enemy? It is not enemy. They are your opponents. They are not your enemy. They are opponents. So in the war, there are two sides. One is the one side, another one is opponent side. So you are in the other side, and you have to face the opponent. Who are all the opponent? First two are your doctoral committee members. The next two are your internal external thesis examiner. Another two are your internal external viva voce examiner. So if you cross this barrier, and your thesis will be awarded a PhD. Okay? All the very best. Thank you. Nice to meet you, sir. So any question? Any question?
Thank you so much, sir, for beautifully consolidating all the important aspects of thesis writing. So scholars, if you have any questions, you can interact with Professor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for briefing about writing the report and all, about the thesis after the completion, before completing the PhD. But my question is, when do we need to start this writing? Because we start with introduction, then we have literature review, then we have data analysis part, and then before that we will be having the research questionnaire that we will be circulating. So a lot of work will be going on for the next 4 or 5 year period. So, and this is a continuous process, and if we write the report at the end of data analysis part, then we might miss about some of the important areas which we have covered in the initial 2-3 years period. So when do we need to start writing this thesis report? Do we need to start at the starting point, or after completing all the work regarding our
If I
research?
say initial period, will you start writing from tomorrow onwards? No. So the thing is,
no, why I am asking this question,
yeah, I understand the question. The thing is, when you are completing certain portion of your work and try to communicate and try to prepare a technical paper, That is opt time, because you have some kind of a maturity there. Once you complete one segment of your research and try to publish a paper, and when you sit and then do some paper writing, that's the opt time. You can look back and then started writing your literature survey. I would recommend first you start writing 2 chapters, introduction and literature survey. If these 2 chapters are ready, other chapters will be ready in a month, because it will take lot of time a lot of time will be consumed in writing a literature survey. So every day, whatever you are, you have to have a book, notebook. You have to write manually, or you type. You have to have a folder, or you type manually. This is a paper I studied. These are all the important points I have. This method he has used, this value. This is the major reason for this. So like that, if you create a bullet point, probably before you start writing your thesis, you can complete the literature review. So I would recommend to write the literature review first. If you write a literature review, automatically your brain will write this introduction and other chapters also. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor, sir. You said the psychological factor is influenced to write the thesis, right? How to overcome, sir? Naturally, that comes to everybody.
Probably the psychological factor will be maximum affected those who are doing PhD after marriage. Because my father was a teacher. He was a teacher. So after completing my BE, he said, go for ME. I had an image after my BE, because my engineer in my city used to come with a safari, and he used to have a vehicle. He used to come and then visit every villages. So I had an image. So engineer, so some safaris. So he said, no, go to ME. So I prepared GATE and then appear, and then got ME also. Then I was a second rank holder here. I thought I will have a beautiful placement here. Yes, so I was invited. So I told her, Appa, I was selected for this scrutiny for interview. Tomorrow I am going to interview. He said, what company? I said, some software company. No, don't go. So he said, do PhD. I did PhD before my marriage. So my mind is free. I don't have any problem. I did not have any problem. But the psychological factor, if you have only one problem, you can probably face it. Like research problem, you have a multiple parameter, and you will be confusing which parameter is dominating. But the psychological factor, sometime, if you have a fashion and time management, this can be overcome. Time management is very, very important, because those who are in the family life, you have to also equal time and your attention to the family also. Those who are without any family, single, bachelor, work is only one for the multiple worker. So many work. Along with that, your supervisor also will ask, where is the data? Where is the data? The pressure will be built. So time management will avoid the psychological fear.
Thank you, sir. In every chapter you mentioned that is very, very important. I understand that every chapter is important.
Yes. See, we have so many parameters, X parameters. Sometime in the research we will say, this parameter is contributing 98%. This factor is contributing 1%. This factor is contributing 0.1%. In that order I have presented. Every chapter is important. But for your knowledge thing and the judgment of the thesis will be done by these 2 chapters. But other chapters also quite important. But these will contribute maximum 60% or 70%. That's my guess.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So thank you, Professor. And thank you, Professor. And I have another practical question. Like, I am a working professional from government side, working for water resources and PWD. The challenges which I faced during my MS research, itself is, I have studied in UNESCO IIT Delft. So the primary challenges which I faced during the time of my research, writing down my thesis, is that there is always a controversy between the applied research and the core research or out of box. What you said is exploratory ideas. So when we write something on the thesis or even in the draft, immediately they are jumping into the conclusion that it is actually something you write it based on your experience or wisdom. So it has been never been encouraged actually. So they were always there. For my case, it is a specific case of even exploring our traditional water body and system. The literature is so rich enough that we have in Kalitogai itself, we have been mentioned about hydrologic cycle. When I say about it, the modern hydrologist, they don't believe so exactly. So we face a very critical problem of the differentiating between the kind of DPR or innovative projects what we implemented and converting that into a structured research results that we always faced a problem. In fact, I would just want you to give some clarity. For example, you're talking about improving the metallurgical aspect or even mechanical aspect of it. That is different from application of the natural sciences like hydrology and other things. We have a traditional wisdom which has to be translated into modern time, and then we need to do kind of a exploratory research. And what is the borderline between this applied research and then exploratory? There is one point I want to ask you. Second point is that when you have an out-of-box idea, which has never been represented by anybody, any literature, maybe the area is not familiar to the European country. Say if I say chain of tanks in Sonana, if I say that Sangli Todar aerial Sonana, they never even understand what I'm talking. They say tanks in Sonone, either a syntax tank, concrete tank. So I had such problem. But my simple question is one is how to differentiate between an innovative idea implemented on the field and the same thing been explored through a research. இந்த ரெண்டுத்துக்கும் borderline என்னங்க சார், அது ஒரு விஷயம். ரெண்டாவது, when you have an out of box idea, how to start writing it and make it a new kind of exploration. ரெண்டு பாயிண்ட் தான் உங்ககிட்ட கேட்கணும். Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I will answer for the second question, exploratory idea. I think now in Indian system, research organization or research institutes now started accepting our ancient practices. Okay, so I think now even in the metallurgical thing, we are now digging out a lot of information from the Vedic sciences, because a lot of informations are available in the Vedic sciences, where if you convert that into practical problem and find a way to produce, then there are a lot of opportunities. Therefore, now the psychology or mindset of the people, researchers are now shifted, because in Indian we understand lot of traditional medicines as well as, in fact, in my own field, even see there is a problem. People who work on the nanoparticle, they know the nanoparticles are not stable at high temperature environment. But even the solutions were available in the Veda. And one of the IIT professor, who took this scripts and then he has also demonstrated, he has produced the particle which can be stable above 1000 degree also. So now I think the mindset of the people are changing to understand our value of our ancient practices, and we started accepting this. But I think now you will not find any problem in taking up some exploratory kind of idea. But only that some worry is that the facilities, there people might have some sort of reservation. The facility, probably if you, for example, a case study, if you understand something which is very, very ancient and you have to have a carbon dating for them, we don't have a facility. So the problem is facilities. If you have a nice facility, then people start to understand. That's the thing. And also the exploratory kind of a thing, sometimes see our PhD systems are designed that because you have to get the degree within a shorter period of time. But sometimes these kind of research will take a longer duration. Therefore, again the problem or pressure on the supervisor side is finishing this PhD in a shorter period of time. So if you do not have any kind of a time barrier, then also kind of good funding, and you can take up and then do this kind of a research also. So we have certain what is called the drawbacks in our system to encourage this kind of exploratory kind of a thing, because funding is a major thing, sir. Here we encourage this kind of a thing, but who will fund this? We cannot load our PhD scholar to fund themselves and then do research. And also we do not have sufficient funding in our system to support this kind of a thing. That's the only drawback. Otherwise, our mindset has been already changed to take up our ancient practices and also innovative solutions. and it is being changed. It is not completely changed, but it is in the track of changing. Therefore, it is a positive sign only. Yes, I think I answered all your questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, scholars. Once again, thank you so much, sir,
Thank
for
you,
your
thank you.
valuable contribution. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you very much.